Hey, welcome back to our conclusion to our study called What is Your Name? We were looking at Genesis 32, 24 through 32. Now in this passage, we are confronted by the fact that Jacob wrestled with God. He wrestled with the one by whom all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. Colossians 1:16. We are left with the startling fact that God allowed Jacob to wrestle and prevail because of God's choice to allow him to do so, right? Because at any moment, he could have stopped him. It was not Jacob's own strength that allowed him to prevail, to wrestle all night long, to make it through that. But it was God's grace, his unmerited favor. J.R. Miller said, "What was the substance of the blessing that he received that night? Was it not a new nature? He entered the struggle as Jacob, the supplanter. He emerged from it as Israel, a prince with God. He had not gotten his new spiritual blessing through the withering and crippling of his old self. We sometimes, or he had gotten, most of us, what? Reverse that. He had gotten his new spiritual blessing through the withering and crippling of his old self. We sometimes speak as though he obtained his blessing through wrestling, but he was defeated as a wrestler, and his power to struggle was crushed. He obtained his blessing after he had been defeated by simply clinging. When he could wrestle no longer, he wound his arm around the neck of his divine contestant and clung there, refusing to let go his hold until he received a blessing. Now, if you're a follower of God, cling to him. Do what Jacob did. If God pops your hip out of socket, hang on to him. Hang on and ask for his blessing. In Jesus' parable of the persistent widow, he taught us that we ought to always pray and not lose heart, to cling on. Will not God, he says, give justice to his elect who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long over them? I tell you, he will give justice speedily. He's saying, if their persistence in their prayer, they're just clinging on to, hanging on for that blessing, begging that blessing with weeping and tears. God's not going to delay. Your Father knows you. He knows what you need. He just says, be persistent. Hang on. He knows how to bless you. He knows the blessing you need. He knows how to change you so that the blessing makes sense and it impacts your life. He knows how to give good gifts. He's not like us. Even though we know how to give good gifts, he gives better gifts. So what do? We pray. We don't give up. And we don't lose heart. Well, that's our study for this week. Come back next time and we'll look at the next story in Jacob's life, where he actually finally gets to go back and meet Esau. And we'll see how God blesses him in that situation too. There's a lot of changing, a lot of blessing going on here. A lot of good stuff. So we'll come back next week and we'll take a look at chapter 33.